Welcome to the channel. Finally, I'm doing this YouTube thing, Geomancy, where we are looking at the past to see ahead. I have uncovered a lot of stuff and I want to share some of it with you. So why did I choose this name Geomancy, and why did I choose this logo? Geomancy, as I'm using it, is the art of placing or arranging buildings or other sites auspiciously. Auspicious meaning for success or good fortune. For example, these are some sites that we can see that have some interesting characteristics. Washington, D.C., the capital of the United States, planned in a very particular way. If you've ever been to D.C., you know that it is a city that is just so strategically well planned. Maybe not for driving, but for other reasons. And you can only see these if you look at them on a map, if you connect dots. So I want to shout out the video Secrets in Plain Sight by Scott Onstock, because that is the first time that I ever saw this kind of information laid out such a clear way. If you have 4 hours, go study. Over here we have St. Michael's Lay. This is a line that connects different points of interest named after the Archangel St. Michael in various countries. And I might do a whole video just on that, but very, very interesting because they were all built at different time periods. If you know anything about St. Michael, he was often invoked to, well, legend has it, he was invoked to help build amazing structures and monuments all over the world, and then they're named after him. So interesting. But going further, we have a St. Michael alignment in Great Britain, and this connects different points, all of interest, including Glastonbury Tor. So already we can see geomancy, there is some significance to it, and it has been practiced worldwide. I am using the spelling that I am because I'm using it as Geomancy, Earthmancy, which leads me to why did I choose my logo. So my logo is me depicted as a swarthy Moor, a Moor's head. The Moor's head can be seen all over the world in very interesting and unusual standards by our current narrative. Okay. What I've been told my whole life, and people like me, is that this is where we come from. You were yanked from Africa, loaded up on ships, sent across the Atlantic, and then made to work the fields. Not a super flattering history. Also, we'll get into the logistics in the future, but highly unlikely that this was even possible. I mean, how are you going to pack that many people on a ship, send them across the ocean for months? You need to feed them. You need to have water. They have to go to the bathroom. There has to be basic things if your purpose is to have them work. The only way that slave thing really makes sense is if the people were already where they were, and then they were enslaved somehow. So what we can see with my logo is that it was found all throughout Europe, all throughout the world. I'm just showing you a snippet, but these are some places that show a Moor's head as the main thing on heraldry, on crests, regalia. We've got Austria, Germany, Spain, Belgium, Slovenia. Okay, the Freising Moor's head, this is like the oldest iconography of the Moor's head in this town in Germany from 1316, the Middle Ages. I guess that's a little after the Middle Ages. No, that's the Middle Ages. What if this is where we come from, not that? So that is why I choose my logo. It's a reminder, and my catchphrase, looking back to see ahead. You notice all of these are looking back. They're all looking back. Now, I have the flag of Corsica and the flag of Sardinia. 2 places in the Mediterranean. They actually switched Sardinia. They reversed it recently in the last 100 years, so it's actually looking the other way. But every time you see a Moor's head, it's going to be looking in that direction. And I think there's some symbolism to that. Okay. So if this is what we see throughout Europe, right, then could that mean that the people in power maybe also look like that? I've recently discovered some of this information and some of these images, and I'm not going to go too deep into it now, but these are in Germany, okay? Saint Maurice and his companions. I have homies that look like this, right? They don't tell us in history or Black History Month, right? It's February, the shortest month of the year. They don't tell us that this is what people look like in these places. And there's reason for that. Saint Maurice, by the way, was the patron saint of the Holy Roman Empire. The Holy Roman Empire is Germany today. Why would, if the whole slave narrative, as we've been told, was true, why would they make the whole saint a black guy? I don't know. And over here, we have, I believe he was a duke, Philip von, I don't want to mispronounce that, but I can't even pronounce these names. German is hard. Eva von Grumbach, circa 1567, from Evangelical Lutheran Church in Bavaria. And in Germany, a lot of this is known. These are out there, but they're not known worldwide. Okay. So if these are the people that were in power in these places, could they have been the ones who were behind constructing these things? Perhaps. Right? This is the Cologne Cathedral. That's the Berlin Cathedral. It's weird to think that, like, in Middle Ages or the early modern period or any of these different time periods we're told that peasants were capable of this. And that's a theme. So this gets us into the idea of history being reset, identities erased, and things restarted. If this was built hundreds of years prior, perhaps by people that look like this, and then this is Germany in the 1800s. So I'm going to start sharing a couple different photos of places all over the world, and you'll notice a couple themes. I'll tell you now. One of the themes you'll notice is pretty impressive architecture for the time period, for the needs of what we know of those people, for the populations, okay? You'll notice that the buildings look uninhabited or just not used to their potential. You'll notice they look old. You'll also notice the lack of people. And that is one of the main themes with resets. Is if something was happening and people were ruling at one point, there was a takeover, a reset through various ways, which we'll get into. Then it caused these places to be empty and life to rebuild after that. Okay, so that's Germany. This is Chile. All the way down there in South America, they're building the same stuff. Perfect. Look at those Corinthian columns, man. I guess they must have studied in Greece, huh? This is India. This looks very old. It also looks stuccoed or whitewashed. That's a process they do. Basically, you can look that up. Whitewashing is what they do to buildings to basically cover up how old it really is. Japan, the Yokohama Specie Bank. Now, this style of architecture, this is very interesting and what some call Tartarian. I don't even like to get on that bandwagon, but this is like that ancient old world stuff in Japan. Okay. Pakistan. The domes. Oh, notice the domes, by the way. There are domes all over. That's another theme, okay? Pakistan. Amazing. Perfect. And nobody around. We see a couple people on the bottom right down there. Look like they had nothing to do with constructing that. So, how are some of the ways that resets happen? One is through war. Wars are a way to erase the people, take over the place, reclaim things, and start fresh. This is in Russia, okay? War is just one of the ways. But wherever you see war throughout history, and especially when you see a lot of wars or global wars, that's usually a shift in power, and that's an indication of a reset happening. So when we talk about the Age of Revolution, which began in like the late 1700s, 1800s, this is when all the wars began to be waged worldwide. And the takeover from people that look like what I showed you before, that look like my homies, it went from them to what we have today. Okay. And so that's just one way. Another way is cataclysm. We're not going to write that off. Everyone knows about the flood myth in various ancient texts that says, a deity or deities sent a deluge to destroy civilization. That's a pretty common theme, right? But also there's other kinds of cataclysms, maybe fire, mud flood. That's the whole earth changing, earthquakes, etc. There's a lot of different things. But I was recently watching the newest Black Panther movie, and they have a lot of deep stuff in that movie, if you can get past the bad accents. But there's a lot of deep stuff. So one of the themes is there's another highly advanced civilization that no one knew about, not even Wakanda, and their leader is this demigod who has amazing water capabilities. And he brings about a flood to Wakanda. They get into a little battle. I'm not going to spoil the whole thing or even waste time getting into it. But it's interesting how the major theme, right, is two highly advanced civilizations that are beyond the surface world get into a little tussle, and one of these civilizations causes the other to flood. In the end, it all works out, but we do see evidence of flooding and strange weather all over the world from different time periods, post-reset, from basically 1750 to 1900, all kinds of weird stuff began. Cities changed, levels, everything. Okay? And what happens after that is that people need to come in and start over. They had nothing to do with building it, but they can put their name up on it and call it this, that, the third. All throughout history, to this present day. I mean, look at neighborhoods in different places. They used to be one way and now they're another way. Same thing. And if it's through war or highly advanced technology or something that we don't know about, there's a lot of work to be done, and people better pull up with their shovels. Another thing you'll notice in these reset photos is that, like, the people that we see in the pictures look very unsophisticated. They look like regular Joes. They look like they just came upon this, like they found it. And I think that's what the term founding means, is they found these places and they just decided to start over, rebuild, and it took a long time. So how these resets work and the timing of all that, I might have to do a whole series on that. But the evidence is clear that worldwide shift was happening. And we can see that when we look at these old photos, right? So this is a panorama of San Francisco in 1878. And it's insanely high def. So I'm going to zoom in and show you what we're working on, okay? First of all, you didn't know that photography was this good in 1878. Neither did I. Second of all, you didn't know that San Francisco was this developed in 1878. 29 years after we're told they showed up with shovels and pickaxes to get gold. In less than 3 decades, you have this whole place laid out, right? Amazing, if that's even true, which I don't think. But I will give you $1 if you can find a person in this entire panorama, okay? So it's really important to look at old photos because you start to see that the narratives we've been told just don't make sense, okay? What was the population of San Francisco at this time? Let me look it up, actually. So, basically between 1848 and 1878, San Francisco went from a population of 1,000 people to 233,000 people in 30 years. That's amazing. I don't know if I buy that. But I think that a lot of stuff was already there and inherited. So let me pan around here. Okay. We see a mix of different building styles, architecture, some not impressive stuff that I would expect with that time period, like most of this stuff here in the middle. And then we see these amazing mansions that look like a lot of the things we see all over the world, right? Very nice, very nice. And there's a construction site right here. Okay. This construction site, what I would expect of the time period. Not much. But again, where is everybody? Could it be that this photographer who's taking this photo from wherever he is taking this photo, could it be that he was sent out to scope and to document what happened? If you didn't know, San Francisco suffered like a lot of fires. Many fires, all from 1850 to 1900, destroying parts of the city. So they had to rebuild a ton. That's another consideration, right? They had to rebuild a lot. But the fact that there's nobody in this image, I don't know. It's telling. And we do see amazing churches and buildings and things that just, I don't know if they were possible at that time. Oh, and consider, this is before major transportation. This is before cars, trucks. So everything you see got to where it is by horseback, presumably, and was built by hand. No power tools. Okay. This whole place. 29 years, these pioneers went out there and did it. Okay. We see domes everywhere. Paraguay, Singapore, Cuba. And for my favorite, where do you think this is? Okay, this is in Shanghai in the 1930s. You didn't know that Shanghai looked like this, because all we know about China is basically communism, which happened shortly after this. But you didn't know that they had the same building style. This is today. Same building style and features and design language that we can see worldwide. You probably know where this is. This is the United States Capitol in Washington, D.C. Same design language and building style. I took these. These are in, this is in Philadelphia. The other one is in Scranton, I believe. And yeah, this doesn't suit the needs of the time, from what we're told of the people. And if it did, who's responsible for building it, right? This style of architecture is prominent all over the East Coast. This is in Cincinnati. It's interesting. You know what that is? So buildings, when we talk about geomancy, right? Buildings or other sites placed auspiciously. This is what I mean. I mean that our towns and cities and everything have these amazing buildings and these amazing structures that are placed in a way that we don't fully understand. And the histories that were given about these buildings, like this gentleman, Henry Hobson Richardson, I learned about him in college. And yeah, he's credited with a lot of things, but I believe these architects like him who were born right in that reset time period were responsible for rehabbing and claiming and basically taking over what was left from the old world. Because even if he was the architect, who actually built it? Who actually went in and, got the job done? He didn't. And we'll get into architects, man. The stories behind the architects that were told about these buildings just doesn't add up. It's full of holes. Okay. But now I'm going to get into the feature. And if you're not hooked by anything I've been talking about yet, buckle up. Star forts are one of the things that I think are undeniable evidence of some advanced civilization that existed not too long ago. And what we have is a takeover of the infrastructure and resources of this civilization. Okay. So this is a star fort that is in Fort Pitt. I think that they are they're claiming and setting up. So I'm going to read you the brief little intro, the official narrative on these structures. A bastion fort is a fortification in a style that evolved during the early modern period of gunpowder, when the cannon came to dominate the battlefield. Okay, pause. Structures built for war as fortifications. That makes sense. Okay. First seen in the mid-15th century in Italy. Pause. Given what I talked about before about who was ruling these places at this times, could it be that those responsible for star forts and for the design and for their use, their actual use, were those people? If you're familiar with stolen history, you might already know about this post in particular, but if you're not, I highly recommend checking out Stolen History. You'll learn a lot. Let me just read to you what one of the most legendary posters, KD, has to say. Star-shaped cities, towns, and fortifications are located throughout the entire world. They were predominantly created prior to the 18th century. Their uniformity and style suggest the same shared architecture-related educational background of their creators. These structures are located in the areas which seemingly should not share any common features. Additionally, it is important to remember that we are talking about 1600 to 1700s here, hence lack of just about everything we are used to enjoy today: email, phone, internet, transportation, education, etc. It is very easy to dismiss this strangeness by saying that is how they built those days. Whether it is a plausible explanation or not is up to every individual observer. Our conventional science chooses to ignore the topic. After all, why would traditionalists look for that chief engineer who made sure that buildings all over the world were built to the same standard? Or how those builders 300 to 400 years ago were able to create something like this? What tools they used for measuring, for excavation, or where the workforce came from? For example, 17th to 18th century shovel is only a click away. These structures were slowly but surely getting destroyed or remodeled, restructured throughout time. It could have been done to eliminate any reminder of the centralized global union existing on Earth in the past. Some of the areas where they are located look nothing like they used to. At the same time, there is plenty of evidence left. Complexity of the engineering design does not correspond to the technological level, abilities, and most importantly, possible needs of the time. Simply put, why would those people in the 17th century go through with such a construction process instead of building simple square walls? It makes very little sense. Unless there is an unknown reason hiding somewhere in history. A reason strong enough to make the entire world construct these star-shaped walls. So, without further ado, let's look at some of these. These are just some images, but I'm going to actually share with you now the project that I've spent some time working on. We're going to check out star forts worldwide. The link to this will be in the description, so you can check out this aggregate of star forts that I have pinned on Google Earth, and I'm missing tons. I mean, God knows how many I'm missing. But what you will see is that these structures, this is not a game. This is not light work. The Wikipedia, the official narrative, says they were built between 1600s to 1800s. So every single one of these, and there are over 300 on this list, every single one of these was built in that time period. Okay? By whoever. We have all corners of the globe. Even Hawaii. Japan. Okay. So let's look at what some of these look like, right? Some are very small, just like this. Nothing major. But then others are a bit more prominent. And a theme you'll notice with these is they all have water around them. Okay? They all have water around them. That's indicative of their purpose. It's not like it was a good defense. No. I mean, look at this. The precision. Okay. And we're just in Japan. You want to see Taiwan? So this one's a bit overgrown, but they're still there. That one's there. Now, let's go across some water, okay? Let's look over here in India. Look at that. Middle of nowhere. That's a fortification, okay? For war. Okay. All right. Maybe. How about this one? That's for war. Okay. 17th century fortress. See? It's ridiculous. First of all, if you're an attacker, you're going somewhere else. Another thing to note, I'm just noting this now. A lot of these star forts are near places of air travel. Okay. Perhaps that's indicative of their former use. Let's go to some of my favorites. All right. Let's go over here. Europe is riddled with them. So again, if Europe was ruled by people that we weren't told about or know little about, could they have been the ones behind constructing these? Could they have had some other purpose? Let's go to the Netherlands, okay? I love this one. Naarden. Look at that. A whole village. How is this constructed? How is the earth moved? These are the basic questions. Like, we don't have to get too deep. We don't have to ask, like, how were the pyramids built? No, this is recent history. How was this done? When it was said to have been done. In the amount that it was done. This is precision engineering. We could not do this today. You know how long it would take to do this today, anywhere in the world? That'd be some huge project. But with shovels, they could do this all over the place. Okay? All over. Oh, this is, look, on this tiny island. I remember this one. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and an airport, like I said. So let's look at some of these, okay? Remnants, ruins, but it's there. Same thing. This, whatever isle this is, look at that. Where are we right now? Alderney, okay. Well, Alderney must have been, Alderney, whatever, must have been some important place. Because why would you put this many star forts on a tiny little island? You know what I'm saying? I think that these star forts have to do with perhaps some transportation system, some energy system. There's a lot of possibilities. But it had nothing to do with war, because what are they protecting here? St. Anne. You know, this is so if you want to see another place that has a ton of these in small concentration and close concentration, let's go down to my favorite place to look at these is the Florida Keys. Again, islands, water. So we got two here. Again, right next to an airport. Look at that. Right there, right next to an airport. Fort Zachary Taylor. And this next one is one of the most impressive structures, maybe in the world, that few people even know about. Fort Jefferson in Dry Tortugas National Park. First of all, look at the location. So maybe this was sunken. Maybe this was not submerged. And whatever this place was actually on land. This whole thing was land. That would make a lot more sense, because how did they get the bricks here? So this star fort Fort Jefferson is the largest brick structure in the Americas. 16 million bricks were used to build this thing. For what? I'm not so sure. Way out in the Florida Keys. And the nerve of like the people to go on tours and listen to BS, historic 19th century Civil War fort. Maybe the newcomers came in and took it over, and that's what they used it for, but that's not its original purpose. I'm sorry. So back to airports and how they're near there. This is the closest star fort to where I live, and I've had field trip here as a kid. This is by the Philadelphia International Airport. Okay. We used to have field trips here. When you're flying out, going north, you'll go over this. I mean, it's pretty amazing. Like, these are worldwide. So again, I don't have time to go into all these in this episode. I'm already running over time. But I just want you to know, like, you got to start doing research and opening your eyes and exploring and really seeing things. One of the most famous places in the United States is a star fort. Okay? This is indication. And when we talk about travel, or these may being ports of entry, well, if you know anything about the United States, Ellis Island, this is where a lot of people just showed up around 1900. So I think these star forts, man, I think they have something to do with portals or energy or something that we're not told. Because whatever we are told just doesn't make sense. It really doesn't make sense. By the way, in New York, this is called the Battery. So I think it has something to do with the energy system of this whole thing. These are everywhere. I could go on, but I want to cut it here, and I will do another video shortly. Thank you for watching. I hope you got something out of this. If you do, leave me a like, leave me a comment. If you want me to add anything to the star forts, go ahead and I will pin it. And subscribe for more. I will be making more of these often. Take care.